Hey everyone, what's going on? We're going to continue today with chapter 14, section 3. All right, you're not going to have homework tonight. I'm just going to go over the worksheet, which is going to be right here. I'll post this on Google Classroom. Again, same as the other day. If you want to print it, fill out the answers, you can. If you want to keep it in your notebooks, you can. If you want to keep it in your chapter 14 folder, you can. Or you can simply look at the review sheet and look at the answers that I'm going to post, and then look at the review sheet. This is not homework. You will not have homework for this. All right, I gave you writing assignment Monday, Tuesday, and you'll have something to do tomorrow. Carry us into Friday. So you're not going to have to do homework for this. This is really more just to keep for your notes. And to be honest with you, that's actually the wrong sheet. So we'll open up the right one. This is the right one. Okay. So let's get into it. All right. In 1854, and I will actually go to the so you can view it. Okay. In 1854, the Republican Party is going to get started. All right, that is the same current Republican Party as today. I know we talked a lot about political parties. All right, from the Federalist, Anti-Federalist, Democrat, Republicans, Whig Party. All right, but the Democrats are established under Jackson. The Republican Party will be founded in 1854. Okay. While all of that is going on, we're going to go back to Abraham Lincoln here, all right, who is going to start making more of a name for himself. I believe we're going to get into that shortly. Okay. And one of the big things about Abraham Lincoln is to understand that when he started making a name for himself, specifically the Lincoln Douglas debates, which we'll dive into in a little bit, all right, he never really said he wanted to end slavery. His biggest position is going to be he wanted to stop it from spreading. Okay. That's a huge deal. The belief was if you could stop slavery from spreading west, eventually you could get to the end of it. All right, but you had to start somewhere. All right. Obviously, his feelings about slavery, and you're actually doing an assignment on that tomorrow, all right, are deep rooted hatred towards it. But he knew for political reasons, he just couldn't come out and say, I'm going to end slavery. So, stop it from spreading west, and eventually it would cut itself off. Okay. Let's go to the election of 1856 for president. All right, John C. Fremont, the hero of California, will be the Republican candidate's first candidate, the Republican Party's first candidate. Democrats will nominate James Buchanan, very politically backing, had been an ambassador, I believe, had been in politics for a while. All right, Buchanan is going to win the election. He's going to win the election of 1856. All right, and a lot of people will say that election is the reason why the Civil War started, is because James Buchanan did not want to deal with the issue of keeping the nation together. Honestly, he wanted nothing to do with it. He was a quiet man, soft spoken. Honestly, just wanted to get in the White House. He's known as the only bachelor president. He was never married. Okay, he does his 4 years and he leaves. We'll talk more about him leaving later on in the chapter. One of the important things, and you'll notice there's a couple things in bold here because they will be on your test. Okay, and again, this entire chapter is about reasons of the Civil War, causes of the Civil War. And I hope you guys are watching this stuff or listening to these YouTube clips that I'm giving you because it's like we're in class. Not really. Class is so much better. I miss you guys. All right. But it at least allows me to go over it. One of the major reasons is the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott is a former slave who, and I'm going to break it down easier, makes it to the North where slavery didn't exist. Okay, wasn't the Underground Railroad. There's a long story behind it, but basically he's in the North, okay, and he's forced back into slavery, and he sues the concept of slavery, stating that he was in a Northern territory. He was a free person. Technically, he's a free man. Well, it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court in what's known as the Dred Scott decision, one of the worst decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. Roger Taney is the Chief Justice, who also is a Southern supporter. And here's what they rule, and I'm going to say it with a straight face. Because Dred Scott was not a free man and never was, slaves are considered property of their owners, and therefore property cannot sue in court. Okay? Congress was not able to prohibit slavery in the territories. It's not in the Constitution. It's left to the states under popular sovereignty. It's not in the Constitution. It doesn't exist in the Constitution. So, therefore, to the Supreme Court, doesn't take up the issue of slavery. Okay? Let's say that again. The Dred Scott decision basically says that slaves are property of their owners. And because they are considered property, they have no rights in the courts or the Constitution. This is massive. It basically supports the legality of slavery in the South. The North is going to go nuts over this. All right. It didn't matter. The Supreme Court made the decision. So, again, another wedge between the North and the South, the Dred Scott decision. Okay. I like showing these two pictures. All right. This is a very young representative of Abraham Lincoln. All right. Probably late 1840s. All right. This is Abraham Lincoln in the Stephen Douglas debates that took place in 1858. We're going to dive into that in detail. Okay. Notice how young he looks here. All right. When you look at the end of the Civil War, he ain't going to look that young. Okay. 1856, James Buchanan, Democrat, wins big, 174 to 114. All right, 45% of the electoral vote. All right. Importantly, if you look at this map at the first line, you just look at it quick. Northern states are starting to vote for the Republican anti-slave candidate, and your South unanimously backs the Democrat pro-slave, not really wanting to get involved. Okay, when I start showing you maps on the Civil War, maps are going to look very similar. Okay, so you had James Buchanan, the Democrat, who wins, John Fremont, the first Republican, and the Whig Party is still kind of floating out there a little bit. All right, and they nominate the former President Millard Fillmore to run. He doesn't win. I believe he only gains 8 electoral votes. He wins the state of Maryland. He was kind of irrelevant in the election. All right, it's between these two. Republican candidate, your Democratic candidate, and Buchanan will win and become the 15th president. Okay? This is Dred Scott. This is the individual who sued for his freedom in the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, stating that because he was in a free territory and therefore a free man, he had a right to be free. Wrong. The Supreme Court will say slaves are property. Property cannot sue in the court, and basically legalizes slavery in the South. It is a massive victory for the South, the Dred Scott decision. Okay, it basically made this map irrelevant. Okay, no slaves, slaves, and basically slave states could expand here with the support of the Supreme Court that slavery is basically illegal, basically legal. All right, this is actually Dred Scott's tombstone where he's buried. Okay, he if you visit grave sites, it's known to put a coin or a rock or something. If you visit, many people still visit his. Okay, Dred Scott was a slave. Dr. Emerson died, so therefore, Scott became property of the doctor's wife. Scott sued for freedom, and again, that's the whole concept. Okay, his owner died. Technically, according to rules, I guess he would become property of Dr. Emerson's wife. But then he sued, saying no, his original owner was the doctor, not the wife, and it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. The Missouri Compromise is ruled unconstitutional. Slavery can expand west. It's just chaos by 1856. Okay. Again, we did this. Now, I want to get into number 7 and 8 here. All right. This is where we really get introduced to Abraham Lincoln, and you're going to do an assignment on him tomorrow, which will carry you into Friday. All right. We got due dates now on some assignments. All right. Abraham Lincoln is going to run for the United States Senate in 1856 against a very powerful Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas is incredibly powerful. Okay. Stephen Douglas is even technically considered almost a presidential candidate. Douglas will win. Okay, he's going to win the election. I'm not going to take anything away. Lincoln loses. Look at number 9. All right, they debate all over Illinois, and Abraham Lincoln is one of the first candidates to really take a stand on slavery. And one of the debates, he gives what's known as the House divided speech. Okay, which basically said a house cannot stand divided. You cannot have two separate houses trying to act as one. All right, the country would fall apart. The house divided speech. You're either going to have all slave or all free, but you can't have it both ways. All right, little foreshadowing here for ELA. All right, he sees what's coming, and he's one of the first candidates to actually do that. Like I said, Douglas is going to win the election, but Lincoln becomes very popular in the nation in 1856, even though he loses. All right, he's one of the few political candidates to lose an election and actually gain popularity. All right, which will carry us into 1860. All right, another wedge right here. All right, Stephen Douglas supported popular sovereignty in the West. I'll dive more into that probably next week. Something known as the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Okay. You also have, while all this is going on, and again, we're doing a lot here, guys. All right, Stephen Douglas, Lincoln debates, the House divided, the election of 1856, the Dred Scott decision. All right, popular sovereignty, Missouri Compromise, Compromise of 1850, Henry Clay. All right, we also get into this John Brown concept here. John Brown is going to lead a group of men into Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Okay, and basically Harper's Ferry, Virginia was where the army was storing some weapons. He was hoping to take those weapons, give them to slaves, and lead a slave revolt in the South. Long story short, John Brown is captured. He is put into jail. He is sentenced for execution. In the South, he's considered a villain. In the North, he's considered a hero. But it really, really, really scared, okay, Southern slave owners. This is a question on your test. The fear that slaves could lead their own revolt. All right, that's going to be on your test. Famous photos. These are paintings. All right, here's Stephen Douglas. Here's Abraham Lincoln. This is in the state of Illinois. They're out there talking about the election of 1856 to the Senate. Douglas will win. Lincoln becomes very popular. All right, these are paintings that are done. These are the two men. Stephen Douglas will win. Lincoln will win the presidency 4 years later. There's even monuments throughout the state of Illinois on the locations and the sites of where these speeches took place. Some more. Okay. Quote from Stephen Douglas again, who's going to win? All right, the Senate election, but Lincoln will win the presidential election later. This is the House divided speech, and I'll read it to you. 1858, Lincoln won. A house divided itself against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the House to fall, meaning the United States, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all of the other. Famous statement. It's known as his House divided speech, and it's on your test. Okay? Again, John Brown. This is a political cartoon of John Brown leading slave revolts in the South. He ultimately is going to be captured in this building in Harper's Ferry, Virginia. There were weapons stored in here, and he planned to give these weapons to slaves to lead a slave revolt. Okay, this is actually the army, all right, putting down the revolt led by John Brown. All right, here he is being taken out. All right, and a famous photo. In the North, he's a hero. In the South, he's a villain. Another thing driving the country to civil war. Okay? Again, just review the section. You don't have to do anything on it. You want to fill it in? Great. All right? Dred Scott decision on your test. Republican Party on your test. Abraham Lincoln on your test. The Douglas debates. The House divided speech on your test. John Brown raids on your test. All right? So there's a lot of stuff on your test here. Here are your answers that I will post. This is the review sheet for Section 3. Talk about the creation of the Republican Party, the Dred Scott decision, the Lincoln-Douglas debate, and ultimately John Brown's reign. Everything on here we went over. It's not homework. You want to fill it in the study, that's great, but it's not homework. You'll have homework tomorrow, which I'll give you 2 days to do with due dates now to prep us for continuing on into Chapter 14. So again, more reasons why the North and the South were split, more issues between the two, the introduction to Lincoln, Dred Scott, the election of 1856, Lincoln Douglas debates, okay, and then ultimately the House divided speech. All right, guys, be good, be safe. Any questions, text or call me. I'll talk to you soon.